In this lesson, I'm going to go through the system options that I prefer to use while teaching this course. System options are available from the drop-down and then options. The general options that I like to use are, of course, input dimension value, which is a nice setting which allows you to do the following. You have a sketch entity or another dimensioned entity, and then you have a dimension on it. This option is the one that calls up the modify dialog box as soon as I place the dimension. If that option was not checked, the modify dialog wouldn't come up. Show thumbnail graphics in Windows Explorer is an important one. If you are browsing in Windows Explorer, let's go to a directory with a lot of models. Here we have just icons showing up, and you'll get part, assembly, and drawing icons. If this option is turned on, show thumbnail graphics in Windows Explorer, then instead of an icon, you will get a tiny preview of the part in its place. Instead of the tiny preview, I like to use the large icons display option in Windows Explorer. If I want to sort documents by type, I'll go to Details and I look at Part, Assembly, and Drawing icons. If you change this setting, get out of SOLIDWORKS and expect it to work immediately, it may require a reboot of the computer in order to get Windows Explorer to display all those tiny icons. Another option you may want to be on the lookout for, especially if you're an administrator, is the Enable Freeze Bar option. By default, this is turned off in your installed SOLIDWORKS, which is good news for administrators because it's a new option and it could throw off some users if they find a freeze bar pulled down over some of their features. If the freeze bar is pulled over a feature, you cannot rebuild that feature. So let's open a part with multiple features, such as this block. Freeze bar is this yellow bar at the top, and you can pull it down to prevent SOLIDWORKS from rebuilding the first several features. It's much like the rollback bar, but it works in reverse. The colors settings can be important and are also fairly confusing. The option I like to use is to use the plain background. This will override any sort of background that an individual user may have put in. A document scene background, although it says recommended, allows the background to be controlled on a per document basis. Most CAD administrators will want something that's a little more consistent than that, and using the plain option allows you to set a single color for any document that's read in this workstation. Other important settings can be found on the display selection page. I like to use the part assembly tangent edge display set as phantom. I also like to make sure that the selection of hidden edges is allowed in wireframe and hidden lines visible mode and not allowed in hidden line removed mode. There are also some settings that may turn themselves on or off from time to time, and I found this is especially true if you have multiple versions of SOLIDWORKS installed on your computer. Dynamic highlight from graphics view is an important setting. Let me show you what that does. As you roll your mouse over the geometry, the faces, edges, and vertices will automatically highlight. This is the functionality we're talking about with this setting. So make sure dynamic highlight from graphics view is turned on. Display dimensions flat to screen is an important one that some people miss. Display notes, also flat to screen, is a separate setting. Display draft quality ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion is an advanced graphics effect that approximates what the shadows would look like if a part were to cast shadows onto itself. Draft quality doesn't look as good as regular ambient occlusion, but it also runs much faster. So if you have a substandard graphics card and you still want to use ambient occlusion, you may want to turn this setting on. Display speed pack graphics circle. We just talked about the speed pack in a previous lesson. and I demonstrated that as you move your cursor over a part, there are certain ghost parts that you can see but cannot select. If you find that effect annoying, you may want to turn this off. Although you'll be able to see the parts, you still will not be able to select them. Third angle projection type is important for anyone who is making drawings in the United States. The ANSI standard is based on third angle projection. ISO standard is based on a first angle projection and is used by many European countries. This is one of the two places where you can set this option. The other is in sheet properties on a drawing. We've talked about a lot of the settings in performance and assemblies, and I would invite you to refer back to other lessons to learn about these settings. Also, in the basic course, we talked about file location settings, which are very important for setting up templates, and storage locations for other types of items, like macros. Feature Manager we have also talked about, but there are typically three options: automatic, hide, and show. When you have the choice, I like to go for the show option because there are some features that even under automatic, they will not show when they contain items that you want to see. Backup Recover contains some important settings. The auto recover information can be turned off if you want to save a little bit of rebuild time, and especially if you have a very large assembly. If your computer or your system is prone to crashing, you may want to leave the auto recover turned on because it's the only way you'll be able to recover a certain amount of information after a crash. Also, the backup is different from auto recover. If this is turned on, then every time you save a document, SOLIDWORKS is going to save the previous version in a special folder. I typically don't use this. File Explorer allows you to turn on items that you can see in the task pane flyout for File Explorer. And finally, the messages and errors allows you to turn items back on that you've told SOLIDWORKS to not show you again. For example, when the dialog box that says models contained within the assemblies have changed, would you like to rebuild the assembly? And you clicked on the box that said, don't show me this again. That is what caused this dialog to show up in this list. If you want to see that again, you can click the item here and say OK. This is an overview of my preferred settings that I've used throughout this course.